Evening. My name is John Lewis, and I'm welcoming you to the interview portion prior to the official Board of Supervisors meeting for October 9th. I apologize for the late start. We have one interview, Mr. Rick Ryan of the Golf Committee. Mr. Ryan is joining us via Zoom, and I believe he's in the city of Philadelphia because he has a lovely background, or that's one.
I'm actually in the city of San Francisco right now.
Ah, okay. Well, a very nice city. So typically the way these work, Mr. Ryan, is we ask you just a few questions, get your perspective on stuff. And because we have a couple applicants for this particular role and there's potentially other openings, we won't have necessarily a nomination for you tonight, but we will keep you posted on that. If you want, I'll start the questioning with very simple. What's motivating you to join the golf committee, and what experience do you have in golf management?
So the first part of the question is just have a passion for golf. I've been playing at Makefield for...
Uh-oh. Fortunately, he's frozen 20. In a reasonable...
He locked up.
Yeah, he locked up hard.
Okay.
Yeah, the worst is when you get locked up with a bad face expression.
I don't think
That's okay. That's fine.
No, it kind of looks
Yeah.
like he's whistling a happy tune.
Yeah, so he's fine, yeah. Uh-oh.
No, you're back.
He's back, okay.
Did that fix it?
And he's gone.
Keep your
There he
camera off.
is.
Maybe that'll work.
Okay, Mr. Ryan, you froze for a second, but can you hear us?
I can, yes.
So the good news is when you did freeze, it was at a good facial expression, because sometimes when you have those freezes, it's not a good one, but yours was excellent. So with that, would you like to answer the question again?
I definitely can. Really, in a succinct manner, I've been playing Makefield since that course opened. I've seen the iterations of the course as it morphed to allow for more golfers to play that golf.
Maybe we should just do it when he's available.
Oh, did he go to Oh, that makes him an automatic yes.
He dropped out again.
He dropped out again? I did not know. What year did he graduate? Oh, okay, well, it's a long time ago, but it's way after me. so.
Do we just want to interview him when he's here?
Yeah, I mean, maybe because of the cutting in and out.
Maybe the storm?
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
I can.
I think every time yours goes to my picture is when it locks up and freezes.
Mr. Ryan, would you be okay if we talked 2 weeks from now at the same time?
I mean, that's fine.
Yeah, I feel bad, but I don't want you to be constantly freezing, if that's okay with you.
Does this work, though, without the video?
Yeah, I mean, we can hear you, if that's
Try
okay.
this.
Sure.
I mean,
Okay.
I'd
So,
love for you-
go ahead,
You've
go
now
for it
seen
then.
me, but,
Yeah, well,
No, listen. I've been playing Makefield since the course opened, and I've seen.
Yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Ed has done, and I just really have a passion for being part of the future of the course.
His bad connection.
Okay. In the interest of time, would everybody be amenable to inviting him back in 2 weeks? And Mr. Ryan, I am so sorry for the bad connection. And it's ironic that San Francisco occasionally has bandwidth issues, but in many cases they've had weaker bandwidth than those of us here in the East Coast. Most people don't know that. But with that, I will call the meeting to order. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, roll call. Supervisor McCartney is unable to join us tonight, either in person or on the phone, and he had given us advanced notice of that. Supervisor Grenier?
I'm present.
Supervisor Blundy?
Here.
Supervisor Ross?
Here.
Okay, we're moving on to agenda item 4. This is community announcement. At this time, this is where folks can call in if they have a special announcement, or you can contact the township at admin@lmt.org to request a special announcement. The first one I'm going to start with is if you have free times on the weekend and you'd like to volunteer your time, you can join the Friends of 5 Mile Woods Cleanup Days. They're held the second Saturday of the month at 5 Mile Woods starting at 8:30 a.m. Is this Saturday coming up, the second Saturday of the month? I think it is. So if you don't have plans, get up early. Get up a little before 8:30, get ready, bring comfortable clothes, and bring work gloves and water to stay hydrated. If you've got any questions, you can reach out to Monica Tierney at monicat@lmt.org. Now, the most exciting thing I have to announce tonight is on October 19th, the Lower Makefield Township Historical Commission is hosting their Slate Hill Cemetery Ghost Tour from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Slate Hill Cemetery, 2308 Yardley Morrisville Road, Yardley, Pennsylvania. Now, you can visit the website to actually sign up online and buy tickets. Those who attended last year's event, it was extraordinarily well attended, and the event itself was amazing. One of the actors, I was joking, was a Tony Award winner. He actually was a Broadway actor. And aside from learning the history of Slate Hill Cemetery, the event is a wonderful time. You will enjoy it, I promise you. The tickets are going fast, and I want everybody to hear me. You want to get those tickets because it's going to be packed. It's already been a very interesting event. You want to be there. It gives you a true sense of the history of Lower Makefield from the cemetery. And we're continuing, the Historical Commission, who's actually meeting at this time in another room, are continuing to work to bring that history alive for folks. On October 26th, the 11th annual Slay Sarcoma 5K Walk Run will be held at the Core Creek Park in Langhorne, Pennsylvania. The primary objective of this event is to raise awareness and research funding for leiomyosarcoma. And there's going to be about 500 race participants and their families to participate. And if you got a feeling you want to do a 5K, you definitely want to be there. Lower Makefield Township will be hosting a blood drive for the Red Cross on Friday, November 1st, from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. right here in this building, in this room. To sign up or get more information, visit redcrossblood.org and enter the sponsor code Lower Makefield. If you go to redcrossblood.org and your timing, maybe you can't do November 1st, Friday, you can find other locations in the area to donate blood. It's important, especially now, because we continue to have shortages with blood, and also, too, we've had some natural disasters that we're hoping won't require additional blood, but it's certainly an issue. Lower Makefield Veterans Parade and Ceremony will be held this year on Saturday, November 9th. The parade starts at 1 p.m. on Edgewood Road and Long Anchor Lane and concludes with a ceremony at Veterans Square. For more information, you can visit our website, lmt.org, or call 267-274-1105. At this time, we'll be on to agenda item 5, public comment on non-agenda items. So if you have public comment on something that's not going to be on the agenda, this is a time where you can come up, state your name, and tell us that you live in Lower Makefield and share your comment. So do we have everybody? We have one person in the room. Is there anybody on the phone yet? I don't see anybody, so go forth.
Hi, I'm Lori Gray. I am a resident of Lower Makefield Township. I actually just had a question about the meeting schedule. So I know that last week's meeting got canceled and 10/16 got canceled. But at the September 18th meeting, it was said that the 10/16 meeting was going to be the budget workshop. So is that now going to be the 10/23 meeting, or is there going to be?
Yep.
It's going to be the 10/23 meeting?
Yeah,
Okay.
we canceled last week's meeting. It was Rosh Hashanah. We hadn't calendared it correctly, so that's why we canceled it. And then to move things, to get things to work, we shifted.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if that was still going to be the budget workshop. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there any other public comment? I'm not seeing any on the line, no callers. They're all watching the Phillies game. At this time, we'll move to, and by the way, if anybody who's in the audience, if there is something good that happens for the Phillies and you want to visit the lectern and share, that's acceptable on this meeting and this meeting only. If you're a fan of the Mets, not so much. Moving on to agenda item 6, consent agenda items. This is a series of items that we handle in mass. If there's any one of the agenda items that somebody wants to take up separately, I would ask any of my supervisors if there's something that they want to separate out. Otherwise, we'll take it as one motion. Similarly, if there's anybody in the public comment or anybody has comment or has questions, they can come up as well. Is there any supervisors that want to remove any item from the consent agenda? Is there a member of the public that has a question about something on the consent agenda?
I was just going to stay up here, but thought I'd sit back down. Lori Gray, I am a Lower Makefield Township resident. Item letter J, the fall maintenance for the turf field, is that the turf field at Makefield?
No, it's saying turf, but it's actually grass. So, Derek, I don't know if you want to provide some context on that.
So, yes, the term is turf, but it's the lawn, grasses. So it's a fall fertilization program for all of our grass fields, including everything that's grass at Makefield, the baseball fields across the street, the softball field out back, all of the grass fields that the township owns and maintains and that the kids all play the ball on.
Okay,
So it has nothing to do with the YMS's turf.
Thank you
field.
very much.
Yep.
I appreciate that clarification. Thank you. Thank you.
And with that, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda items.
So moved.
Second?
Second, okay, let the record reflect, motion was made by Supervisor Grenier and seconded by Supervisor Ross. At this time, we'll call the question. All those in favor of the consent agenda items signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect that the vote was 4-0. And we'll move on to agenda item 7A, Community Development. Consider award of a tree planting bid to M&S Erosion Control in the amount of $61,871.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Majewski has joined us, Director of Community Development. Would you like to share a little bit about the proposal?
Yes, the township received 9 bids to do tree planting on a variety of township properties, including Makefield Highlands Golf Course, Macclesfield Park, an open space at the intersection of Bluestone and Stony Hill Roads, an open space parcel on Old Oxford Valley Road, and a few other miscellaneous trees. We checked the bids from the lowest contractor, M&S Erosion Control LLC, and everything checked out. We therefore recommend that the base bid and the alternate bid, I think I just said base bid here, but should be base bid and alternate bid, be awarded to M&S Erosion Control.
Are there any questions?
Yeah, one quick question. Jim, in terms of the bids you received, were there any exclusions or assumptions from the bidders related to availability of specific tree species and whether or not their prices would go up if the cost of a tree may be higher than what they anticipated? Just because when I look at the spreadsheet you gave, or the table you gave us, some of them have different prices for different species, so I'm curious as to how tied they are to that number, if that's set.
The number is set.
Okay.
If a substitution is required, that would be something that we would have to evaluate with the contractor to make sure that it's in the best interest of the town.
Okay. Appreciate that.
Are there any other questions? Any comment? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of awarding a tree planting bid to M&S Erosion Control signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let the record reflect that the vote was 4-0. Moving on to agenda item 8, engineers report. At this time, the first bullet authorizing reimbursement to PICO, that is no longer necessary, so we will not need to have a vote or consider that item at this time. Isaac?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The second bullet, it's our understanding that is being tabled for the contractor to provide pricing for an alternate fence style. So the item B is,
Nope. We're not getting, you need to be a little closer to the mic.
the second item for Woodside that's on the agenda is being tabled to our understanding for the contractor to provide pricing for an alternate fence style. Item B is,
Before you, do we need a motion to table the item, or can we just consider it later?
Yeah, we'll take a motion to table.
Do we need a motion to do that? or
But
does it
why not
matter?
just for,
It doesn't hurt, so yes, you
Okay.
can make a motion to table.
I'll make a motion to table item 8A.
Second?
Before we vote, can you put a date on that till the next meeting?
Is everyone okay with that? Yeah, so the motion to table will be till the next meeting on October 23rd? Correct.
It would be subject to the township traffic engineer to
Yep.
Yeah,
confirm
yeah.
that. So
Yep.
if that happens before the 23rd, we'd be happy to provide it for the agenda.
Excellent. Okay.
Do we think that's clear enough? Because you withdrew 8A sub-bullet 1, but it's 8A sub-bullet 2 that's going forward next week? Right?
I would be, okay.
Yeah, just for Janelle.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to table item 8A, sub-bullet 2, consider extra work proposal from R.E. Pearson Construction Company in the amount of $175,365.
Second?
Until the meeting scheduled for October 23rd.
Still a second. Well, there's no comment on that at this point. We'll just call the vote. All those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye. Aye. Let the record reflect that the vote was 4-0 to table the extra work proposal from R.E. Pearson. Moving on to agenda item B.
Item B we have this evening is the consideration by the board for the quote from Contech Engineered Solutions. This is not the correct language, but it's aluminum arch culvert with a open bottom. That's for the Highland Drive Drainage Improvements Project. The township assessed the options for either purchasing this at this point, which allows the lead time to basically start to allow the township to have the culvert materials for a contractor that would be awarded the project. So that would help with the lead time once the contract would be given the award, and then the contractor would assemble and install the culvert where it's proposed at Highland Drive. The cost of the quote from Contech is $81,300.
Is there a motion for discussion on this item, or do we want to just,
This would be a request to purchase the culvert.
How could I make a motion to get a discussion going that we may have, because we may have different direction. Let's swallow this thing. We may have different direction we want to provide. What would be just a motion?
Not to approve, or if, depending upon who you would prefer, purchase the box into subject box, I guess. You can make a motion that you would prefer that the engineer purchase.
So why don't I do this? This will end up getting amended, but I'll just make one to start. I'll make a motion to have the contractor eventually chosen for the construction of the Highland Drive culvert purchase this whatever culvert is agreed upon. That'll get amended.
If I can just point out that the
well, we need a
Plan
second
a
first.
second before we discuss.
Second. Yeah, now we can have the discussion and we can ask questions, so.
that the options were analyzed by our office and also many folks on the township staff. The reason that we are recommending that the culvert be purchased ahead of time is that, one, the pricing can be purchased through CoStars. Two is that the final culvert plans from Contech would be provided upon the purchase of that culvert. So if there's not one purchase, then it will add time to the plans being finalized for the bid package. It would also add scope to have the culvert designed, being that it's not the one from Contech to be used.
The contact one is an aluminum
Arch culvert.
Arch culvert,
Mhm.
which is built in pieces, right? So it's many little panels put together. That requires different pavement type put over it rather than a precast box culvert that would have typical.
A precast box culvert was discussed with the DEP. They do not want a box culvert at this location. They want an open bottom. That was part of the permitting that we went through with them, that we discussed
Right, which box
many
culverts?
times.
You can get an open bottom box culvert.
I'm saying by definition, it would be open on the bottom. All right.
Right.
The hydraulics that we looked at for the maximum opening to allow the most flow through, as the project's intended to try to improve, was the reason that the option of the aluminum arch culvert was selected. The three options were an aluminum arch culvert with the asphalt pavement, an aluminum arch culvert with the concrete pavement, which allows you to have less clearance and enlarge the opening. And then the third one was a modular rolled girder, but with the short span and the high cost of that, that didn't seem to be an option worth pursuing for that. It also has a longer lead time. So that is why the option was, I guess, determined through the work that has been done on the project so far. The arch culvert, if there's any concerns with it, we can help clarify. But otherwise, the decision not to move forward with that would definitely delay the timeline for the project.
Potential. Derek, can you give us your recommendation and just some of your concerns?
Sure. As discussed, there is risk on the township to have us provide material to a contractor. That risk can be mitigated with specs and drawings and information in the packet to reduce that risk on the township.
And we've gone through that with you personally to
correct,
include, so that's covered.
Correct, yep. Worked with RV through all that process. The other thing that Isaac pointed out, it would greatly enhance the timeline of the project. When looking at a global schedule, is that 3 months beneficial? I don't know. Ideally, low stream flows would be predicted in June or July and would probably be the best case to break ground in June and July versus April or March, April. So in reality, are we saving much time but having higher risk with overtopping of a cofferdam or bypass pumping? Most likely, yes, on a contractor side.
How about from a maintenance perspective? When you guys take it over, when your team takes it over?
Yes, aluminum is better than galvanized culvert. It's aluminum, not aluminized, so it is should theoretically have a higher lifespan than galvanized. I don't think it's quite as longevity as a concrete, but to Isaac's point, I'm not sure if a box culvert would be, again, open bottom box culvert, it has the same hydraulics, I'm not sure. But if those calculations work out, obviously concrete would be a longer lifespan. Would have a higher upfront cost, most likely, for purchase of materials, but in terms of installation, you may save on the back end for the installation of the aluminum arch culvert in terms of field construction and most likely longevity of maintenance.
Yeah, the aluminum that Contech specifies is the military-grade aluminum, lifespan estimated to be 75 years. The concrete is usually about maybe 25 years longer than that. But the grade of the aluminum is not something that's, easily worn down. It's a pretty robust product.
Could we do, one of the things we're thinking about is when it ultimately goes to bid, that we do bid options, right? Whether have the contractor purchase this particular product that Contech has sold, or provide another option that meets all PennDOT and DEP permit requirements that may be a different design.
It would have to be re-permitted.
Was the Contech, well, we've
The
already done that.
the arch culvert was what was permitted with DEP at this time?
With Contech specs?
Yeah, what they had preliminarily.
Was it a generic arch, not a generic culvert?
It was the arch opening culvert, yeah, the aluminum arch with the opening size that's on there. So if they went back with a different style, they would have to redo the permitting with DEP.
So that would be a drawing update, much like we just did when we had to re-permit it again, right, with the, go through that process. So I'm not overly worried from a schedule perspective.
It would probably be more involved. The drawing permit was an embankment
Been through it
revision.
many times.
Yep, then you're aware.
But the risk put on the township to take ownership of this up front doesn't get us back much from an overall project schedule. We want to get it done, but we want to make sure that we get the best culvert possible for this particular area for obvious reasons, I think, to everyone who's familiar with this. So we just want to make sure that, one, we're getting a culvert that works long-term, that addresses the issue. I think that's number one. If it takes a month or two longer, that's fine. Honestly, may work out to have a better schedule for late, as you were mentioning, Derek. And then the other issue is any long-term maintenance from the township perspective, because our Public Works Department's going to be stuck with it, maintaining it. We just want to make sure that it's something that you all can maintain, in addition to, as we go through repaving over the years, that it's something that can be addressed however long from now that road's got to be repaved, right? So we just want to make sure that the Public Works Department is very comfortable with it, and if we can give them some options that they're comfortable with, that I'd be okay with that, even if it takes an extra month or so. But, that's the board.
The one question I have, so some of the trade-off here is if we were to buy it now, we own it, we take risk if something is damaged or doesn't work, whereas if it's bought through the contractor, they would be responsible for the whole item?
And part of it is, the contractor installs it, right?
Right.
So if we're buying something off a spec and the contractor has an issue in the field, before, and we've already bought the equipment, or we've already bought the pieces, there's additional risk there that they need to do some sort of field change or some redesign because field conditions aren't what they expected, et cetera, et cetera. That does happen. Hoping it doesn't happen here, but that does happen.
In terms of the storage issue, Isaac, I mean, we can coordinate, I mean, to the extent, depending on what the board's action is, we could coordinate delivery from Contech, essentially not to deliver prior to the selection of a contractor. Is that correct? Like that it would be a direct delivery to the contractor, to the job site, not storing the equipment, or I'm sorry, the aluminum arch culvert in our facilities, right? That's what we were intending to do?
Sure, yeah, if there's a preference not to store it at the Public Works yard until they come to assemble it, then we could deliver it or have it delivered wherever makes the most sense. One of the things Contech also has as part of their design and quote is that they do offer support to the contractor when they're assembling. Just to clarify that point.
Is there a storage fee with them?
We would be storing it in our Public Works yard.
No, if we're not storing it, I thought we just heard.
If we don't want to take the culvert until a certain
That's what
time,
I'm getting at.
we haven't asked them that question.
Usually, if they have to keep it on their yard, right? Effectively, what does oftentimes they assess a fee for that.
Yeah, well, it's not assembled. That's what the contract would be for the contractor to assemble and install. So it's just an effort to have the design that was permitted and coordinated with staff to have the least amount of impact to delaying the schedule, and also avoid having to go back a few steps with permitting and design, which has already been completed to this point.
Just on that issue of storage, there is a standard note that's on the proposal that says that, should be unable to accept delivery of materials at the agreed upon time, storage charge equal to a maximum of 5% per month of the selling price of the stored materials supplies. So
Thank you.
I didn't see that.
That's a solid, that's expensive.
Adds up quickly.
Yeah. I'm going to write that into some of my contracts. What's the sense of the board if there's a revision to the motion, or
I honestly, not to, looking at Derek a little bit, for comfort level and some options, but from some of the high-level conversations we've had, I think a bid alternate, some of the high-level conversations we've had, I think a bid alternate might be a good way to go with when we get to the bidding process. This is a separate, this is a purchase issue. This is not a contractor bidding issue at the moment. That comes soon. That'll probably come very soon, I would think. Right? How are we on that one? With putting this project out to bid.
If we have to design the final culvert and add an alternate to that, if the board's open for us to go back to the drawing board on that and supply alternates, we'd request, those services to be paid for, and also for us to put together the final package. So right now, it would be ready probably the end of October. Otherwise, we'd look at most likely another, I don't know, 2 months.
Could a contractor do the culvert design?
You could write performance-based specifications and drawings with minimums, maximums. We need a culvert this wide, it needs to meet
Yeah.
DEP requirements of our permit, and you could have a performance-based, and it would be on the contractor to provide the actual detailed construction drawing stamped by a PE that would be provided to RVE for final review and acceptance. You could theoretically write it that way, yes. That RVE would not be necessarily designing the culvert, but providing performance specs for a contractor to bid on.
Do we have contractors that we're aware of that can do that? That have, or most of, or,
It would be open to a public bid.
yeah,
Another reason we were hoping to include the culvert with the bids documents that would be provided for potential bidders is the history of some other culverts that have been done in the township that have not had a final culvert drawing included with them, and they have had their issues with unexpected things in construction. So this has been an effort to address that, which was the direction early on with the project. We're pleased to move forward with whatever the board's direction would be.
Yeah.
Derek, would you recommend what you just described? I don't want to
Don't put
say
them
it.
on the spot.
No, is that something you'd be comfortable with? Not necessarily your final recommendation. Is that something you'd be comfortable
They're all
with?
reasonable options. Again, it's ultimately, they all have a price tag to them. Obviously, to Isaac's point, is if they go back to do design alternates or bid alternates, they're going back a few steps from where they are today. They need to do some office work and prep other things versus, just finalizing what you could potentially purchase tonight. If you want to put the purchase of this here culvert onto a contractor, the township would probably have to enter a PSA, a professional service agreement with Contact. So Contact finalizes the design, gives that design to Isaac to put in drawings and specs. And again, it can go out the door, and we get aluminum box culvert provided by, or aluminum arch culvert provided by a contractor. The township would have no risk at that point. You have a little bit longer lead time in the end on that phase. So,
And then there could be, while doing that, we could add correct me if I misspeak at all. I'm just going to say it like it's an affirmative. You can tell me if I'm wrong. While doing that latter approach that you just described, we could also have that same contractor provide a bid alternate for that meets performance requirements,
They would also have to get permitting from DEP for a change in design.
which again, we've done already, so I think we could get that done pretty easily.
It would be
same
the
timeframe.
contractor to provide that. It wouldn't be in the actual plans.
Again,
The trade-offs here, I think, are, so let's just going through the cost element of this, separate out the design for a second. I think the optimal, from a cost perspective, is to have, if the same terms, the contractor make the purchase, because then the contractor is responsible for it through its whole life. And then that also helps us from a cash flow perspective, right? Because then they get paid at the end. But the question is, if we revise the structure of the bid documents for the other stuff, that has cost associated with it, right? And the question is, if we think we're okay, the trade-off is, do we think there's enough value in revising the design such that it offsets the cost of that revision and the potential permit rework versus the inflation risk, which I think is now negligible probably for this type of item, but that's where I'm,
Yeah.
that's the trade-offs, I think, and.
And long-term maintenance and-
Long-term
and
maintenance,
that
yeah.
stuff for
Well,
that's
That's
the
what the
key.
question, the total cost of
Yeah, total-
ownership.
exactly.
Element is, and 75 versus 100 years, we're hopefully, probably won't be here then, but the folks who are, hopefully they'll be thankful that we did whatever we thought was the best choice at the time for the long run.
Also, cost-wise, you have the price that's been provided, the quote from Contech that's through CoStars. And that was part of the discussion with staff, is that if it's a culvert, even with an alternate for public bid, like it's expected, it would be a higher cost for the culvert.
And then Isaac, just refresh my memory on the PSA, they were charging $5,000 for design, is that correct?
Correct, yeah. If we didn't want to purchase the culvert and wanted them to include it to be in the bid spec or an approved equal for the contractor to provide, it would be $5,000 for them to complete the design to include with the bid package.
To Isaac's point, yes, you could theoretically have a contractor provide or equal if we don't buy it, and they could theoretically find a cheaper product that meets performance spec.
Oh, Contact's owned by Quikrete. Interesting. I just not.
I would say the main reason not to purchase the culvert that's been designed would be if there's a strong objection to the arch aluminum culvert.
Isaac, just a question for you. So just looking at this, and again, there was a little bit of reference, I think, to the rigid pavement section that's required from a cover standpoint. Do we have any idea what the, approximately, I guess, what the incremental cost associated with a rigid pavement is versus, standard sort of pavement section? Do we have any sense of that?
Well, the concrete pavement is more expensive per square yard than what would be asphalt.
Okay.
What you're gaining is the culvert opening, so you can have a shallower depth above the culvert to
Okay.
the surface of the roadway if you have a rigid pavement.
Got it. So you're saying that improves sort of the function of the culvert, I guess, is what you're saying, or the carrying capacity of the culvert because of the more shallow depth, right?
Correct, yeah, trying to make the culvert opening as large as we can under the road, which is not too high above the stream to begin with, so we're trying to maximize that space.
Got it.
Does any other board member have questions or thoughts? The reason, did you want to share some of your thoughts, Supervisor Ross?
Yeah, I mean, I would prefer concrete over the aluminum, just overall, I think it's better. But I think that should have been addressed a while ago, and now that we're here, that it's probably the cheapest and easiest to just accept this and move on, and then in the future, make sure we're way more diligent about it. That's kind of my
Well,
thoughts.
it was discussed through the entire permitting process, so that was brought up and kind of gone through the different options, which
Yeah.
is how we wound up at this point. If it's
Yeah,
desired to
just-
go back to that point, that's
Yeah, any
definitely possible
contractor-
to make it a
Yeah.
concrete structure, but it would require a few steps back.
Yeah, just in my experience, anytime a contractor hears customer equipment, it's always a problem. So that's why I just don't want to get into that kind of issue.
But is your thought, and I don't want, that you'd be willing to pay the $5,000 for the PSA component then? In theory, because that would cover you on
Yeah,
the
I would
storage and
be,
the risk?
I guess, okay with that, as long as it puts the onus on the contractor. But I mean,
If we don't want the aluminum arch at all, that doesn't need to be one of the options. If it's the direction to go concrete, we can go back a couple steps to that point and go back to the DEP and talk about a concrete
but then at
open
the end,
bottom.
it's probably going to end up costing us more money
Yes, they are more expensive.
when you add up all the redo. Not just the item itself,
It's the design.
all the work
redo.
involved in the redo.
Yeah.
These are pretty standard things to design. the holding costs of 5% a month is steep, if we want them to hold it versus storing it on site.
The conversation with them has been for them to deliver it when it was ready. That was part of the effort to reduce that lead time. If that's the main issue, we can always try to talk to them more about it. But I believe that's why they have it in there, is because their expectation is that it'll be delivered upon fabrication.
I'm not a big fan of aluminum.
Yeah, I'm not either.
And
I would say do it in concrete, because either way, if you put the aluminum in, you're putting concrete on top of it. So it's like, why not just do concrete in the first place?
With that, Supervisor Gordon, do you want to revise your
I'm
motion?
trying to think what I would revise it to, because I
It'd
do like.
just be a denial of the purchase, I believe. Correct?
Well,
Well, that's what's being requested tonight.
Yeah, but we just want to give you good direction.
Yeah,
so you
that's
feel
the main thing.
comfortable. Yeah.
So we're not here again.
Yeah.
We can
Yeah.
just be final.
I mean, we can work with staff for direction as compared to the agenda item. The agenda item is just the request for
Yeah.
purchasing of the culvert.
Yeah, I would say probably best is just deny it and then have staff.
A thought could be is if Isaac's staff could just investigate an open bottom box culvert with DEP and see what level of effort it would take and cost it would take to modify the drawings and the permit to do that. And if by the next meeting we could have that estimated cost on RVE side, we could always default back to execution of the PSA with Contact and stick with the aluminum and put it on the contractor to provide.
Yeah,
I think it's apparently aluminum is not desired any longer. The option 3 was what we had looked at early on as far as a concrete structure. It was more of a short span because you don't have a bottom. I don't like to call it a box too much because there is not desire to be a bottom to it. That's something that Contact had offered with their price and also the design that has a longer lead time. But if the lead time is not a concern, which we thought it was one of the priorities for the project, we can definitely put that together and bring it back before the staff.
You said Contact provided another option, is that, yeah?
The 3 options they worked out with us when we were in discussions with DEP for the permitting was the option 1 was the aluminum culvert with asphalt pavement, so a shorter opening. Option 2, which is the one before the board this evening, was the aluminum with the concrete deck for the roadway. And then the third one was what they call Big R site specific modular rolled girder. And that's a concrete span structure with an abutment to each side. It's typically not used too often for a short span, like is the case in Highland, which is another reason why the aluminum arch was preferred through analyzing those options. It can also be looked at kind of a precast type of structure that can fit in. But
I think their Big R, and just confirm, I think their Big R is a rolled steel girder. So it's steel girder. So you're going to have
then the
extreme high
concrete
costs
deck.
because usually span on that's 120 feet usually, and we're talking 20. But again, that's not concrete. That's a steel span.
we'd be happy to investigate some concrete options and can bring that information back to everybody.
But at this time, though, we wouldn't lose anything by holding 2 weeks on this particular item. So if we investigate this for the next 2 weeks, we could come back if, huh?
Always table it.
Table it for 2 weeks and then come back. But we want to provide fair direction to staff and
Exactly,
to the township engineers so they don't feel like, you come back 2 weeks from now, we're jerking you around again. We want to make sure that that's covered. So is the general sense of the board that we would be comfortable with tabling this and then having a discussion, just making clear what our direction is?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Everybody? Yep, okay.
I mean, again, if the preference is not to have aluminum, then we can take that direction and just go concrete.
I would think at this point, since here's where we are, to just kind of, if we can get a cost estimate for what it would be to change everything over to concrete now and a time, so we can kind of see both of them and see what the lead time is, what the construction time is, what the total cost would be involved in both. And then we can take it from there. I think at the very beginning, before we did any of this, if you would have asked me, I would have said just concrete. But now that we're here, if concrete's going to be way more expensive, then it might be more feasible to do the aluminum.
Yeah, we had discussed that exact
Nope,
options,
I
not
believe
with
you.
the board,
Yep.
but with staff.
Yep.
So we have those prices that were supplied at that time. Happy to forward those along again and also look at maybe some other options for a contractor-provided concrete culvert.
And anything we do there, we want to make sure, whatever culvert we have, to make sure there's clear design for scour protection and other features that don't impact the upstream and downstream neighbors. Making sure that any fence or other protection is clearly designed to understand how that's going to be constructed, so that when we go to a contractor, they know exactly what they're going to be doing, how and when. That's all. We want it.
That part has been done already. So now it just comes down to what culvert we want in there.
Okay. So with that, you're comfortable, you guys are both comfortable with the direction we've given you? Meaning you got a sense of where we're at? You're good?
Sure.
Okay, awesome. We don't have a motion yet to table this item?
I'll make a motion to table my motion.
Second.
Okay. Tabling doesn't require a debate, so with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor of tabling signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect that it's 4-0. And then Isaac, general project updates?
All right, item C for the board this evening, we have our updates from our engineering report that's provided. So some updates on our capital work, the township's MS4. The annual report was submitted to the PADEP on September 19th. And that keeps the township in good standing with the MS4 permitting that we have going forward. An update for Highland Drive and some other elements. The PICO work is awaiting some final moving from Comcast. They told us this morning that it would be today or tomorrow to complete their work. So PICO is looking to move that pole a little later in October. They might bump it 2 weeks or so just for their crew to be scheduled for it. We're coordinating with the resident at One Highland Drive for the easements that would be required for the project. There would be a temporary construction easement as well as a permanent easement for the stream itself. We are also marking those out. That was done last Friday, so the resident has a clear vision of where those easements are on the property. For the road program, the latest update to the road program map that the township has, which shows the roads that have been completed year by year over the last couple of years. That was provided on October 1st and can be used as a tool, planning out roads for next year. For the 2022 program, there was a location that Morrissey has to revisit for an area that after they paved it has some ponding issues. That's at Hollow Branch Road. And that has been provided to them, waiting on a scheduled date for them to address that issue. The idea is that they address that before the paving season is completed this fall. For the Woodside Road Bike Path Project, Comcast has completed their work as of the end of September. Verizon is actively working through moving their equipment to the new poles. With that, they remove the old poles as they complete that shift. Approximately, they say 3 to 4 weeks total for that work. So that is actively progressing there. The township in our office had a meeting on October 7th to review the remaining work from the contractor. As mentioned, that was provided with tonight's agenda, but it was preferred to have them also provide a price for a different fence style that would be installed in the area that descends down to Taylorsville Road. Moving down a bit to the trail connection, scoping meeting application was submitted to PennDOT on September 12th. We did receive an initial response from them on the 23rd of September. Still looking to coordinate a meeting with PennDOT to have this fall. On Taylorsville Road for the road improvements project, we had a meeting, or we have our preliminary design plan set being finalized. With that, we have a meeting with the township staff to review the full set on the 16th of October. That is planned to do to situate what we need to then reach out to DCNR and also PennDOT for the permitting phase. With that, we're likely to request the release of some of the other phases in the project that goes into part of the permitting. So to get an HOP finalized, we don't want to have to do additional redesign after that. So the final design phase and some of the phases that go into the coordination with PennDOT and DCNR would be brought back to the board. For Veterans Square ADA accessibility and improvements there, final revisions for the concept plan has been provided to staff on October 2nd. That's something that we're working on with the Parks and Rec department as well as Jim Majewski's department. With that, there are some updates for some of the active land developments that are around the township. Happy to answer any questions that anybody may have for those. Quickly, I guess just to highlight a few, Lindenhurst Road got a County Conservation District approved request for new coverage on September 9th. That's their general permit too. That will expire in December. Torbert Farm, they have an updated letter since it's been about a year since they were back with a plan submission. We're waiting for that resubmission to come in this fall.
Hey, Isaac, can I ask on Lindenhurst?
Mm-hmm.
It expires on 12/7 because the PAG 2 is, there's going to be a new one, a new PAG 2. Are
That's
they
right.
going to renew it, or they?
Everybody that has one of those has to renew.
Are they going to be done by then, or they're going to go through the? I'm going through the renewal process on a massive project myself, so I'm aware. Are they going through that process, or are they?
I can't
are they
speak
just
for them.
done?
I'm not sure what
You
they're
don't
doing
know?
with that.
Okay.
For the Point project, 1674 Edgewood, they do have their review letters all squared away. We're waiting the plans for the developer to circulate to the township for final signatures there. Projects in construction, Yardley Preserve, there was rain gardens that were constructed. The site inspections were conducted at the end of September, and there's some follow-up to coordinate with some of the work with the contractor with that. At the Regency at Yardley, the north site, they did receive an updated contractor's anticipated schedule that was provided on September 24th, and that's for the remaining punch list items. And then at the south site, the carriage homes, likewise, they got an updated schedule by the developer. They are progressing through the punch list items. They conducted storm pipe repairs on Lavender Drive in the beginning of October, and look to still stay on track to hopefully pave that before the end of the paving season here. Prickett Preserve, we had the residential side, finished at the last meeting. Tonight, it was approved for the commercial side for their progress that has been done to date. We also identified for the residential portion 6 trees that were in dire situations to be replaced, and that's something that the contractor was able to do. That is a responsibility of theirs during the maintenance period. And I believe that is the last update we have listed here. We do have some grant opportunities that are included with the packet. There's one for trees for watersheds at the end of October. The PennDOT MTF is out and advertised. That's due in November. There's a Green Light Go grant due at the end of November. The LSA grant, the local shared account, is the end of November. That's a significant one that covers a lot of different items that doesn't have a match cost. There's also alternate fuels incentive due in December. And the statewide waterway access grant is a rolling grant that can be submitted really towards January. So happy to work with staff to identify projects that could match up with those opportunities.
Going back to the the beginning of your report on some of the capital stuff. Question on Highland, because I've been watching this every day. The pole sort of the orphan pole right now that we're waiting on PICO to move, does that...
And PA American Water is going to take out that pole.
They are going to take, okay.
Mhm.
So so PICO is scheduled to remove old pole on 1021. Is that a different pole than the one that PA Water's taken out?
That's the one in front of One Highland Drive. That's the one that they were waiting on Comcast to finish moving their
Okay, so
equipment.
two different poles.
Right.
So PA Water's taken out the one that they were concerned about, which allows them to make their connection and keep moving. This one doesn't
That's true,
affect-
but they can't actually finish their project until the culvert's replaced. When they
Right,
would
well,
actually replace
yeah.
their pipe underneath the culvert, or underneath the stream, I should say.
Right, and what they explained to me, for anyone that was wondering, PA Water explained to me that the reason they're doing the work that they're doing now is because what was the existing pipe that feeds the neighborhood was built in the 60s and was ready for, they had it in their capital budget to replace with new pipe this year. So they had to replace in 2024 the portion that is up the hill, so to speak, if you know the area, from the culvert, and then they'll do the stuff related to the culvert later, but they had to replace this section ahead of time, so they were spending the money as part of something else. It sort of kind of helps to with the culvert project itself.
Yeah, they did have to move their water line for the additional storm water that the township's looking to put in the roadway. And to your point, they decided that it was good timing for them to relocate just in a different part of the roadway all the way up to Upton.
Yeah, I think they abandoned the existing pipe in place. They didn't remove it.
That's correct.
So we have, which is something we should probably look into as a township to see if that's something we want to allow in the future, allowing all that infrastructure to stay in the roads, because some of it is quite old and a little bit nasty.
Well, the pipe that's going to be in conflict with our stormwater that's put in will be removed when the stormwater is put in.
Those sections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in the same place.
And I think as part of that, I'm looking at you because I know you know the plans. One of the inlets gets shifted because in the field there was a conflict with another line, so they just shifted up the hill a little bit. So the inlets aren't exactly in the spot that you'll see on the plans, but they're still going to do the same thing.
That was one set of inlets, correct? That was
Yeah.
because their marking was not in the correct spot in the field, so we did a little swap. It's about a 10-foot swap.
Yeah. So.
Any other supervisor questions? Moving on to agenda item 9, fire services.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll take that item. So 9A is consider authorizing the submission of a letter of intent to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development's Governor's Center for Local Government Services to request technical assistance to jointly conduct a fire services study with Yardley Borough. This has been an item that we've discussed in concept at prior meetings. Yardley Borough has taken action to authorize the submission of a letter of intent on their behalf, and we're looking to, again, submit a companion letter of intent to the department for purposes of requesting this technical assistance.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by, any public comment? Not seeing any, no one in the light. Any supervisor? Not hearing any. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you very much. Just moving into my report, number 10A, consider authorizing advertisement of an ordinance amending the police pension plan document. The proposed amendment narrowly amends the definition of compensation for command officers and also amends the definition of command officer to reflect the rank of deputy chief, which is currently occupied. So again, we're requesting authorization to advertise the amendment.
So moved.
Second. Any comments? Public supervisor? Hearing none. Call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you very much. And then just sort of rolling into general updates, just a couple things of note. The acquisition of open space on Knoll Drive that the Board of Supervisors authorized at a prior meeting is scheduled for this Friday, October the 11th. Again, that is the purchase of 4.41 acres, which in conjunction with an existing parcel that the township owns will create a contiguous land area of township-owned property of a little over 25 acres. When you combined the Yardley Walk Community Association's open space, that'll create a contiguous block of open space, both publicly and privately owned, in excess of a little bit of 36 acres. So again, that settlement is scheduled for this Friday. An update regarding the RFP for IT services. Those responses were due on September the 27th. We received 8 responses to our request for proposals. Staff is in the process of reviewing those, and a recommendation will be forthcoming on that. And then finally, just a note regarding an application that we had submitted to the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development to participate in what's called their Strategic Management Planning Program. Again, that's to develop a multi-year financial and operational plan for the township. We did receive funding through that program in the amount of $35,950. So that was something that was contemplated as part of the 2024 budget process. Obviously, with the award at this point, that work will spill into 2025, but did want to make note that we were awarded that funding and will use 2025 to work cooperatively with an external consultant, the Board of Supervisors, to develop a plan that hopefully will be helpful in formulating not only the 2026 budget, but subsequent budgets beyond that. So I just wanted to make note of that. That's all the general updates that I have. I'm happy to address any questions that the board may have.
Not seeing any. Do we have general project updates for item 11?
Derek, I don't. Do you want to just make mention maybe of the both the Secret Garden project and then the basketball court also at Memorial Park?
Yeah, I'm going to steal Monica's thunder here. So Memorial Park basketball court, the contractor has completed the resurfacing project. Internal crews have a little bit more work of grading around the basketball courts. You will still see orange fence around it. We just need grass seed to grow a little bit so we don't track mud on the new courts. That project is pretty much wrapped up. We just need some grass to grow around it and we can open it up to the public. And that was a great success. And then as for the Secret Garden, you will see work starting to take place around the Secret Garden with the fence replacement around the perimeter. I believe that started today, tomorrow, and then the week of the 21st, Monica will be pushing out some information that the park will be closed starting on the week of the 21st of October, and the rubber surfacing will start being replaced at that time. Estimated time frame is about a month, so hopefully by end of November, the rubberized surface will be replaced in there.
Curious, who picked the color scheme at the basketball courts? It's very nice. I'm just curious.
Yeah. Let the record reflect that the particular blue and red does in fact match the University of Pennsylvania's color scheme.
I was not the one that pointed it out, but I do appreciate it.
I believe it matches as best as possible the colors that were there originally.
Understood.
How the area for the Secret Garden that will be accessible, that there are bathrooms right near there, those will still be accessible during the construction?
I believe, yes, the intent is to keep the restroom facility open as best as possible for just the common people, that need them. The intent is not to have kids around the work site.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm assuming there's no rentals planned for the pergola in the back there?
That's
That
why it's going to be Monday the 21st. I believe Monica has rentals up until Sunday the 20th. So that's the last day of pavilion rentals is the 20th, and then we'll go in there on the 21st.
Gotcha.
And then I have one thing. When they're redoing the Secret Garden, I don't know what you would even call it, the seesaw thing, barely moves. I think it needs to be oiled or a tension spring or something. I don't know what's under
the ride-on
Yes.
swing. Yes,
Yeah.
we will staff will take a look at that.
Perfect,
Not a
thank
problem.
you.
You're going to test it, aren't you?
Well, I tried. I was there last weekend, and my daughter was like, and I was like,
It's a little rough, yeah.
I was like, I'll look into it. I'll look into it.
Thanks, Dad.
Agenda item 12, Public Works. Do you have any general updates? Nope.
No, unless there's any questions.
Okay. Agenda item 13, Solicitors Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The record should reflect that the supervisors here this evening met prior to this Board of Supervisors meeting in executive session to discuss litigation matters and to discuss an employment matter. Moving on to 13A, in your packets is a resolution number 24-23, which is to approve the adoption of a sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, and other unlawful harassment policy and a child protective services law, child abuse reporting policy.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? That's,
One question. Page 2, where we have under, that is there, allegations of sexual misconduct. In terms of staff members that are become aware of sexual misconduct from the township manager, township board supervisor, the guidance is to report it to the board chair and local law enforcement. Is there any reason why it would just be the board chair, or could we give the option to report to any member of the board of supervisors? If I'm down in
Yeah, can you show me where you're?
item 3 under allegations of sexual misconduct, where it's underlined, about halfway down.
Oh, page 2. Oh. Okay. Or just, so the question is why report to both as opposed to?
No.
Oh,
Can we
why
give,
limited?
does it have to be I'm fine with them reporting to both, that's fine. If someone is not comfortable, no offense, reporting something to the chair of the board, but they would be comfortable reporting it to another member of the board of supervisors.
Understood, as
That's
opposed to
all.
just the board supervisor.
Yeah.
We could change that if you want to, just to put an acting supervisor.
That would be my preference, just to give them
That's
options.
fine, right,
but
because there
no-
can be some hesitation to report to a specific.
Especially in this
That's
circumstance.
correct.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fine. If anybody has, if no one has an objection, we can make that change.
And obviously keep the local law enforcement side of that in place.
Oh, absolutely.
Obviously.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, I misunderstood.
No.
So enforcement and to an acting supervisor of the township.
Yeah.
Or an
Same thing
acting
on, I think there's a couple of references to that approach. Bottom of the first paragraph on page 3 as well, I believe.
We'll go through and
yeah.
make that global change, so it just isn't always the chair of.
Appreciate it.
Correct.
And you're saying acting supervisor? But you mean
Active,
sitting supervisor?
Sitting
Member of the
yeah.
board, yeah. Current member of the board of supervisors,
Current,
yeah.
Anyone but Dan.
current.
Hi.
I will not put that in. A current township supervisor. Okay. Understood. We'll make that change.
so this has been an issue we've dealt with for a while, and it's been hanging out there for a long time, so I'm glad we're able to finally get this one finished. I know we have other policies we got to work on too, so. We have a motion and a second, and is there any further comment before we call the question? Hearing none,
John, I just don't want anyone to think that we have an issue with this subject. We're just, we're dutifully working through
yes.
personnel procedures.
Yeah. So we,
Yes.
for those who are wondering, it's been about, we've had employment, we don't have a formal employment policy structured that many corporations have, and we've been building that, and that's what the delay has been. So, yes, just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Thanks.
With that, we'll call the question. All those in favor of Resolution 24-23, approving adoption of a sexual misconduct, sexual harassment, other unlawful harassment policy, and child protective services law, and child abuse reporting policy, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect that it passed 4-0.
Good. Secondly is the wireless facilities ordinance. That is before you, not for a vote this evening, but it was before the Planning Commission on Monday, and there were a couple of revisions made to the ordinance itself. It then went to the Bucks County Planning Commission. Bucks County Planning Commission had two suggestions. Part one of the suggestions had two options. The Planning Commission is recommending one of the options, which is to recommend to you as the Board of Supervisors to proceed with the ordinance as presented, but strike references to the wireless communications facilities being defined in the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance does not define the wireless communications facilities, so we don't need to reference it in the ordinance itself. The alternate to that was include a definition in the zoning ordinance of the wireless communications facilities, and there's no need to do so.
Are they defined in this, so they're already defined in the
In the
proposed
ordinance itself,
Yeah.
correct, but not in the zoning ordinance.
Gotcha.
So there was really no cross-reference, and there doesn't need to be a cross-reference, and no wording is necessary to indicate that there is a cross-reference. And the Planning Commission also had a request that any of the text that was added be underlined, and it wasn't for some reason, so we will do so as well. So that was recommendation of your Planning Commission, and that's what is before you. And that's what we'll present to you when it is finalized. If you recall, the wireless facilities ordinance was prepared by, I believe it's the Cohen Law Group in Pittsburgh. We'll work with them to make the change, or we can make the change if so desired. And the only other thing I have on my list is something that the township manager just stole my thunder on, which was the Knoll Drive settlement, which is on Friday. So that is ready to be done. It's going to be done just in parts, but the seller is going to sign the deed, et cetera, on Friday, so it will become township property.
Woohoo.
Thank you. Yes.
Anything else? You did neglect that we did discuss a rodent issue in executive
I
session.
didn't really know if you wanted me to discuss that, but I can. Yes, executive session, in addition to litigation matters and employment matters, was a long discussion about a particular beaver that was presumed to be the township beaver, but is in fact not, but is a wild animal.
Allegedly.
Allegedly,
Yeah.
allegedly. And that the township is taking no ownership of the same. And it is, again, a wild animal.
One last thing on the discussion regarding draft amended responsible contract ordinance. I think we're close on that one.
We are very close on that, yeah.
Okay.
There are a couple of things in the works, as you know. I sound like a broken record. The sign ordinance is before you. That is before you for review, but also subject to revision by us because of the new the new case law. The responsible contract ordinance is very, very close to being completed.
Okay. Awesome. With that, move on to agenda item 14, supervisors reports. I was at the Planning Commission, and the solicitor uncovered and did that one for me, so therefore I don't have any additional stuff with that. Supervisor Grenier?
I have nothing to report this week.
Supervisor Ross?
No report.
Supervisor Blundy?
I don't have a report, other than we do look forward to continuing the interview with the golf committee candidate, and just a reminder that there is in fact an opening on golf, so come one, come all.
And there is another, I'm glad you mentioned that, the Electronic Media Advisory Committee also has an opening.
We do have openings on other boards and commissions. There's an opening on the Planning Commission as well, so if you, or a potential opening there, so if you have an interest, please speak up on that. Any other business from board members? Not seeing any. We don't have any appointments or reappointments. This is the agenda item 17, additional public comment on non-agenda items if needed. So if you were watching the Phillies game, and don't tell me the score, or tell me the score, no? No, oh my gosh. If that's the case, and you missed public comment, but have additional public comment, here's your chance. I'm not seeing anybody, there's no one on the line, and with that, I'll move to agenda item 18, adjournment. Meeting's adjourned, thank you. sorry, I didn't do the 45.